Good morning, comic book fans. Welcome back to Comics in 5 Minutes. I'm your no Shorty, and yes, it's another quiet week for us, I'm afraid. Turns out this is all to do with just us not having a very good run up to Christmas. And when I was ordering stuff in December, I was panicking about how we're going to be able to afford all these comic books. So I wasn't taking as many shots on new stuff that people were asking for quite so much. I usually do. I enjoy doing it. And we do usually sell these through, so I need to be a little bit more bold, and hopefully going forward we'll see more things to review. This one's quite easy. It's Jumpscare, and I really like the concept of this. It's Cullen Bunn writing, which is pretty cool. This is a guy who has, years ago, put out an absolutely fantastic horror story, and I keep waiting for him to do something as good. This is, I think, the closest he's come to it, and I mean that in the nicest possible way. When I say it's not quite as good, I don't want anyone to think that that is like a criticism. Harrow County was an exceptionally good bit of horror. Jumpscare is different. It's part of a shared universe. I didn't know anything about the shared universe going into it, but it's worth pointing out that kind of like minor threats, which I love, every story should be able to stand alone. Good writers can do that. And that's in its a tick in the win column for that one, because it does explain just about enough that there's some stuff going on in the city, and it's kind of eldritch in nature, and that there are superheroes. And that's all you seem to really need to know to jump on board with it. And that's good. I don't want to get bogged down with like an entire half of the first issue of exposition about what's happening in the world. I just want to see what's going on here. Because the concept, as I said, is good. It's not high concept. It's kind of simple in its way, but it's one I really quite like. Our superhero here, heroine, has the ability, well, a few things. She can move fast and is strong, which is kind of cool, standard superhero fare. The one that most people will be talking about is the ability to pull things out of the ether. And what she can pull is the murder weapon from any horror movie that she's ever seen. And as she herself says, she's seen a lot of horror movies. And that's good, and it's fun, and it adds an awful lot to this idea of horror mixing with superheroes, which I'm really all there for. But she's also got another ability, and this one only really gets mentioned once, but it's my favourite of them because of how it ties into the comic being called Jumpscare, which she can also teleport, as long as nobody is looking to the place that she's teleporting to. And I kind of like that, because it means she's always going to be behind somebody and can make them jump. It's simple, effective writing. It adds a lot to the world, adds a lot to the character, and I'm like, yeah, okay, that's good. That does the job for me. Story-wise, it's pretty solid. There's a bit of time spent doing a little bit of flashback, a little bit of an origin story, and there is a little bit of lampshading there, where it's like, oh god, literally the main character talking to you, the reader, saying, oh, just what everyone needs, another origin story, but then does the origin story anyway. And that could have annoyed me. And it did, at the time it happened, but very quickly realised that a certain way this character talks, it makes more sense to me once I put it in context. Because she talks like she's a character in a Joss Whedon-esque story. May he forever get peed on by small goats. But I don't think it is that. I don't think that's the intent of writing it. And you get that a little bit from the fact that she talks about the whole origin story, like everyone needs one of those. She's a fan of that kind of writing. I mean, in her world, Joss Whedon never exists, thankfully. But that kind of quippy, off-the-cuff retorts from Buffy the Vampire Slayer and forward, she's a fan of that kind of thing, as well as the old-school 80s slasher movies. So when she talks that way, it's not an homage to any particular person, it's just how she is. And I know it's kind of hard to say exactly what those two differences are, but it does strike true. It does make me feel that that's a character choice rather than a writer choice, and I like that, because I'm always character front and centre. I want to know everything I can about these people to engage with them and care about them, empathise with them, and I do. Now, when you get to the end of the first issue, there's not really a, oh my god, I can't wait to see what happens next. That does feel a little bit like, okay, this is just a reason to carry on the story. But it does have something to characters, and it looks very cool. And how this comic looks is a huge tick in the win column. It looks amazing. When I first looked through it, I thought some of the colouring looked a little bit soft, but it turns out because we are having flashbacks, those soft colouring feels like, yeah, it's more appropriate to have that when you got the white picket fence, suburban household, cereal for breakfast on Sunday before going to church. It should be a softer colour for that, rather than fighting tentacle monsters with axes and hooks. You know, that deserves a totally different palette, and the artist, Daniel Luckett, sorry, I had to check the name there, does a really good job on that one. But it's more than that, there's a little change in textures. And I talk about this kind of thing a lot, and I totally get that. Sometimes when I talk about organic-looking natural textures, that's probably somebody who's buying a quite expensive digital brush to make it look that way. I get it, but I still appreciate the effort. In this case, it's a bit more than that, and I don't know if it's subtle. I don't know if it's just I notice it because I look this kind of thing. I enjoy talking about this quite a lot, as you can see from the fact that I've done literally hundreds of these videos talking about comic books. But when we get a flashback, the effect throughout all of it is a little bit like pan and scan lines on a TV screen, and it makes it feel like we're getting all of this secondhand. We're viewing it through another lens. Yes, it ties into just the idea of this being somebody who loves old movies, so that would make sense for how they would imagine it. But as an external viewer and reader, it does. That distance actually makes it feel closer as a story. It feels like there's something more put into it, and it makes me care again about the people telling the story. Genuinely love this. Really good book. Can't wait to see what happens next. That's it from me for now, though. Until I see you all again, look after you, everyone. Stay safe. Bye.